Good morning, boys and girls. Continuing with our intro to introductory books series, I have a real nice one here today. It's a teacher of mine, my first teacher, as a matter of fact, my first Buddhist teacher. It's Chagdud Tulku, Gates to Buddhist Practice. And this spectacular man came over from Tibet, didn't speak much English, but he was a really hard worker for the Dharma. And he published this book much later. He published this book in 1993. And it's a very nice intro to Buddhism in general, a very nice intro to Tibetan Buddhism also. And it covers the real basics, like turning the wheel of the Dharma, working with attachment and desire, working with anger and aversion, working with ignorance, and daily life as spiritual practice. He also talks about the importance of the role of the Lama, the preciousness of human birth, impermanence, the ocean of suffering, how to contemplate the four thoughts, refuge, giving rise to bodhicitta, wishing and engaging bodhicitta, that's loving kindness and wisdom, wise loving kindness, something like that. And then the roles of faith and prayer and preparing for death. And then he goes more particularly into the Vajrayana or the Tantra, more specifically Tibetan Buddhist. And then he introduces folks to the great perfection, Dzogchen, and talks about mind, activity of mind, and nature of mind. I really recommend this book for someone who's just starting out, and even people who are intermediate. Actually, I kind of recommend it for everybody. He was a meditation master, and he had, he started out so small, but then it grew, and then I think he opened up a whole Dharma center, both in Brazil and in the Northeast. But when he first came over here, it was just a handful of students and him in some room somewhere. So, Gates to Buddhist Practice, Chagdud Tulku, really recommend it. Keep it in print. Okay, so that's the intro book for today. And now we go to questions and answers. But first, what have you learned?
What have I learned? A few things.
Good.
One thing though was the thoughts, or more specifically, thoughts referring to myself. For me, it's like a loudspeaker on a wall, and that loudspeaker keeps saying things.
A loudspeaker on what?
On a wall, maybe.
On a wall, okay. A loudspeaker on a wall, okay.
Yeah, and that loudspeaker talks about things in first person.
Oh, really? It says I?
Yeah, it's more like, and after you imagine this, it's like this whole wall is myself, and I keep hearing thoughts in the first person. And it just gives the impression that there is something beyond the wall, yet there is no proof that there is something, substance, like something.
Thoughts are substance.
Thoughts are substance, but it talks in the form of I, in the form as if something's there.
Okay, all right.
Like, that's what I thought.
All right.
I don't know.
And what does it say?
And
what does it say?
It just feels like there is no concrete proof whether there really exists something. It's just that loudspeaker keep saying things in the first person as if something exists, but I don't know.
As if what exists?
Beyond the wall.
Interesting.
As if someone's talking.
So you hear voices beyond the wall?
No, I don't. I think I have butchered it. I don't know. Yeah, I think, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
That, yeah.
so what is your question? How long, first of all, how
That
long have you heard this loudspeaker on the wall?
it's been just few days, and
Just
it's
a
just
few
a
days.
thought
Okay.
or
All right.
a
Good, good, good.
concept.
All right. For a few
It's just
days, your mind's been playing tricks, sort of. What? So what's the question?
there was no question per se. It was more about, is that what, is that how the separate self behaves? Is And maybe this
The
is me
separate self.
inferring from
What's a separate self? Oh, the
the
self
one who
that.
is
Okay.
saying,
So now you've got two fake selves. It sounds like two selves that are separate from everything. But see, these are just inventions of your mind, as far as I can tell, right? So let's explore it a little bit. So, is it a male voice or a female voice talking to you, or is it your voice?
I guess it's my voice
Okay.
because that's the one I have kept hearing.
Okay. So instead of thoughts in your head, you're hearing thoughts coming from the wall.
Yeah, it's just a metaphor kind of thing. Yeah,
It's a
but
metaphor. All right.
yeah, no,
Do you really think that there's sounds coming from the wall?
I don't think so.
Okay. No, there's. I
It's
mean, no. Your mind's just projecting something there. It sounds like. Are you afraid of this thing?
I'm not afraid of these things. It's like it's trying to grasp about what's actually going on. It's trying to understand what this real self is that everyone keeps talking about. And it's trying to conceptualize it by coming up with theories about what
Well,
it
it's not a
is.
concept. That's part of the problem. It's not a concept. But it sounds like your mind. I wouldn't. This doesn't sound too worrisome to me, at least from what I've heard, because it sounds like your mind is going through a lot of tricks and trying a lot of different things to try different things out to see if you can model this situation better. And if you
No,
externalize your
that's
thoughts,
precisely what it
if you externalize your thoughts, then you get a different take on your thoughts than if they're inside your skull.
is.
So
Yes.
it's just kind of like your mind is both working with you and against you, but it's mainly working with you, it sounds like, trying to teach you something.
But how is it trying to teach me something? Oh,
I don't know, because your
by
mind is unique. Everyone has a unique mind. But it's trying to say that your thoughts need not be inside your skull.
okay.
Now, if there were other signs or symptoms or something like that, I might be concerned, but I don't see anything to be concerned about. If your thoughts were coming from the branch of it, if a tree started talking to you,
No, nothing like that. No.
would that bother you?
That would definitely bother me.
Okay. And so this has been a couple of days that you've had these kind of weird experiences. I'm not suggesting that trees should start talking to you or anything like that. I'm really not suggesting that at all. And voices from outside the head can be symptoms of uh, something else that we won't go into here. But what I'm saying is that it sounds like your mind is just it's hit a brick wall and it's trying to do different things, right? Can you have the voices come from the floor?
No.
Why not?
Uh, because I have never heard voices coming from floor.
Okay, what about the ceiling?
I did hear, but I know people live above, so
Okay.
it's easy inference
Are
that.
you afraid of these voices?
No,
Okay.
it's not necessarily voices. What I wanted to say was, like, there is something that always speaks in my head. I guess my thoughts are more auditory in nature.
No, everybody's thoughts are like
My,
that. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair generalization. People have auditory thoughts sometimes.
so my reasoning was about at least the fake or the separate self was
What is a separate
these
self you
thoughts.
keep talking about? The separate self, I don't understand that concept. What is that?
I think I'm just trying to grok what various spiritual teachers talk about. Specifically, Rupert
And do
Spira
spiritual
talks
teachers
about
talk
it.
about the separate self?
Or the false self.
The separated self.
Yeah.
It's not a separate self, it's a separated self, the false self. Yeah, very good. Okay. But that could be anywhere. That could be in your head. That could be, walking down the street. That could be, does it tell you, the voices tell you to do things? Do the voices tell you to do things?
No.
Okay. All right. It's just been a couple of days. Play with it. See if you could get them to move from the wall to the floor. And then go outside and see if they can come from the sky. Just play with it. It's not going to hurt you.
Okay, yeah.
So, are the voices fundamentally different than the ones inside your head?
No.
Okay. So you've just externalized your thought a bit.
I would say yes.
Have you been reading the Avatamsaka?
Sorry?
Have you been reading the flower ornament?
Yeah, I have been.
You have been reading it? Have
Sorry,
you been reading
I
it?
hear you.
Have you been reading it?
The
Because
Avatamsaka.
it's a very common feature of the Avatamsaka that the Buddhas speak from everywhere.
Yeah, I have been reading it.
Okay. All right. Well, just your mind is undergoing changes. It's being transformed. It's growing and it's learning, and sometimes it does that in strange ways. You can't predict how the mind is going to get to its goal, but if you're sincere and you're well planted in reality and in the Dharma, your mind will by necessity have to evolve in ways that are unexpected. And a priori and by themselves, that's nothing to be particularly concerned about. Just go with it, go with the flow, and play with it. See what you can do.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
More questions about that? Are you worried about it?
No, I'm not worried about it.
Okay,
as such.
good.
And
all right.
There are a few other things as well.
Now, what I'm saying to you as an individual is not necessarily what I would say to everyone. Okay, that's important.
Yeah.
Not for you, but for them. All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, other thing that I was thinking of was
it's a loosening. You could look at it. You know what you could look at it as a loosening of ego boundaries. And as those ego boundaries get looser and looser, then you'll have a breakthrough. So a loosening of ego boundaries. So that could be a good thing. Why do you? Does it feel to you like it's something bad or wrong?
No, it doesn't feel something bad. It's more about I wanted to investigate.
Get it to chant sutra, or get it to chant a mantra. I mean, if it's coming, if you got a speaker in the wall, why not have it, Om Mani Padme Hum or Gate Paragate Porasum Gate, Why not? Use it. Use everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing that I was thinking of was I don't know whether this is correct or not, but it's the linear nature of thinking.
Ah, yes.
More specific.
Good.
And it's like I can have just one thought at a time, or like it switches, but it's not like I can parallelly think multiple things.
You can
it
have
switches
one.
Between things.
You can have one conscious thought at a time, but you have thoughts or the equivalent of thoughts all over the place, all over your body, all the time. Right? There's only one conscious thought. I just wanted to clarify for the audience. Okay, keep going.
Okay. Well, my thinking was the linear nature of thinking, and that's one of the reason why it tries to abstract things out. Like if it sees that something's pretty complex, try to grok through its various properties and how it works, and then abstract it out so that my mind can simply use that abstraction in some other cases pretty easily.
Okay.
But
What you will eventually learn is that linear thinking that we're so accustomed to is a major limitation on our thinking. And as we get to understanding more about the nature of reality and the universe, including physics, we're going to find that that linear thinking is woefully inadequate. Right?
I was just going to point that out. Like the real life is non-linear. In fact, sometimes because the max speed at which any information can be reached is speed of light. So there does
No, I
exist.
think there's, depending on how you define information, and remember, there's entanglement, right, which is faster than the speed of light. Now, is information transmitted? I mean, how do you want to define it? But the point is that there are quantum phenomena within the brain. Now, is it information transfer? We could say yes, and we could say no. Most people would say no right now. There's no information transfer. But there's a, if you see a heads, then you know there must be a tail, right? Say two particles. So is that information transferred? No, not really, but kind of ish, depending on how you want to look at it. But go ahead.
That changes few things. Like my thesis essentially was I can't like I can't send you a message within 1 nanoseconds because it will take certain time to reach like send information from my place to your place.
Unless we're
So like
entangled.
there exists, yeah, that's what. So then only thing that I can think of for entanglement would be multiverse theory, where we
No,
are
no, no, no,
living
no,
in
no. We
just
don't have to
one.
jump into all that stuff. And never mind. Just go ahead and finish your thought. Let's forget the entanglement and forget holograms and forget, things like that for the moment. And let me hear more what you were thinking. What were you thinking?
What I was thinking was my apparatus is really the thinking apparatus is not really good at knowing what will happen next.
No, it's a
Like it
really
can
poor
predict
thing. You got
things.
a primate brain, my friend. Yeah, no kidding. You got a monkey brain. Yeah, you're thinking about 1 bit per second. That's what I mean. The people need to get ready because the AIs are going to be thinking at least 1,000 times faster than we are, 1,000 times. So we will look like we're standing still. We will look like trees or rocks to them. So yeah, you've got a very primitive brain. I'm sorry, but that's what we got. That doesn't mean you can't do extraordinary things under, perfect good circumstances. But yeah, okay. And
And that leads to me thinking like sometimes I'm worried about uncertainty and
but see, you're not
specifically.
limited to the brain. You're not remotely limited to your brain or body. Well, you're remotely limited, I suppose. But see, you're putting all your stock in what we understand, and what we understand about the brain, which is almost nothing, and then what we understand about computation, which is also almost nothing, right? But that's not all you've got, my friend. You have consciousness itself is what you are. So it's like you've put yourself in a little box, and now you're complaining that the box is small. Well, yeah,
It is.
but don't despair. We're all bozos on this bus.
It's just that uncertainty I have about what will happen if I awaken. Like it tries to come up with worst case scenarios, but the reality is
Worst case
can never
scenarios?
predict what will.
Why does it come up with
Maybe I
worst
will
case
go-
scenarios?
That is a belief that I have, that if I were to
No, that is a
prepare for
fear
the
that you
worst
have,
case.
and that is what keeps you. See, your ego is playing games on you, trying to keep you from awakening, because once you awaken, the gig's up for your ego. I mean, you spent your whole life
you're-
burnishing and polishing and building up and putting feathers on your ego, and now your ego's faced with the possibility: maybe I'm not the only game in town. Maybe I'm not even the best game in town. Maybe there's another game that's far, far superior to me, and the ego doesn't like that. The ego is full of itself.
So a thing about this, you are talking as if ego has its own consciousness, its own
Well, it
power
appears,
to choose.
for practical purposes, the walking asleep or the sleepwalkers in this world act as if their personage, which is basically their ego, their thoughts, their desires, their thoughts about what other people think of them and what they think of themselves, they think that that's the reality. And for them, it is kind of the reality. It's like sheeps and coyotes, they have a different reality, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So what we're trying to do is evolve your consciousness to increase your intelligence, increase your capacity to think and to apprehend and to understand. And for that, the best thing I've encountered, and I've been doing this for a long time, the best thing I've encountered in my life, and I went to some good universities, this is the best thing I've encountered, is right here. Sorry, folks, I gotta say the truth. The Avatamsaka Sutra, I think, is the best one for expanding the consciousness. Now, you can also do it other ways. Start with Gates to Buddhist Practice or whatever, and do the practice.
Yeah.
But in terms of comprehensive thinking, you're going to have to eventually avail yourself of consciousness itself. Now, if you're just doing engineering, if you're doing engineering, then maybe it's not necessary. If you're doing accounting, maybe it's not necessary. Maybe if you're doing coding, it's not necessary. But if you want to understand the reality in which you're embedded, you are the reality in which you're embedded. You're the actualization of that consciousness in a way that I can't explain to you yet, because it wouldn't make sense.
When you talk about it like that, I just have theories, like theories about or images about something that doesn't occupy anything in physical space as such, and that single point is aware of everything that's happening. Like
It
he's
is
aware
physical
of,
space. It's physical space and everything in physical space. It's all there is. This universe itself is closed in the sense that there can't be anything from outside the universe in this universe, or it'd be a different universe. You see what I'm saying?
yeah, then there will be some other universe.
So what you can't grok, what a
Inside
monkey
which-
what a monkey brain cannot grok, is that something can be everything that exists, physical and otherwise, and also be nothing from the human point of view at the same time. You see, the mind can't do that. It's too big of a paradox. But it is space, but it occupies no space. It is time, but it's outside of time. It includes all time, but it itself is not part of time. It's orthogonal to it. And so until we get you, so you're all on this axis right here. Time, here's the present, there's the past, there's the future, past, present, future, you're living like that, like most humans. on this axis, as a metaphor, or maybe more, is atemporality, outside of time. And yet it can encompass all of this simultaneously. The past, present, and future.
I mean, it does do that via thoughts, but
I'm sorry, what?
It does do that via thoughts about future and past.
No, thoughts about future and past are just thoughts about future and past.
So
I said there was substance to them. It's a peculiar kind of substance, but thoughts are just thoughts. They're not they're not reality in that sense. For the human, reality is in the present, only here, right now. Thoughts can do whatever they want, but they're never the thing. It's like words are never the thing, which itself is really important to Grok deeply, 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 deeply. Words are never the thing, never. I shouldn't say never, almost never, because I suppose you could say a word is a word. Word is a word. Yeah, forget it. Close enough. Words are never the thing.
I guess if you are trying to define some thing in the thought space, then it is the real thing.
To define is inadequate. To define is inadequate. You define words within a syntax. You define a word, but a word's not the thing. We're not trying to define. We're trying to grok. What's the difference between definition and grok? With grok, you become it. You become it. You're empathic. You understand it because you become it. If you read the original book, which you probably should, Stranger in a Strange Land, that's what Valentine, I think that was his name, Valentine. That's what he did. When he grokked something, he became the person that he was grokking. He established an empathic bond between them and thereby grok them. So grok is a bigger word than people are giving it credit for. But go ahead. Now, what were you saying about thought?
Thoughts, it's like there are quite few things that I want to know, like what infinity is, but I think that I know infinity, but what I know is just a thought, in the sense that I have some images about what it can do.
Good.
But I don't know what infinity is. It's like everything's in the thought space, yet it appears that I am actually touching the reality, but it is not. Like, I imagine it to be like a thought.
Is there a set that includes infinity? Is there a set that includes infinity of, let's say, an infinity of categories? Is there even such a set? Or are you just not making something up because it's, infinity is a nice word, but does it even exist in mathematics as a reality, or is it just a symbol?
It's a symbol.
Okay, well, why can you understand the letter T?
Yeah.
Really, can you understand the letter T?
It's just a theoretical concept. There is no reality.
And the same thing with time. You have no idea what time is. And thus far, you have no idea what consciousness is. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just know things move, so that's why time exists. But
do they
can't
move?
Experience time. I can.
Do they really move?
That's a good question.
Okay, so if you talk to not Heraclitus, Parmenides, I think he was a compatriot of Heraclitus. He maintained that nothing ever moved. But these are deeper questions. To approach these questions, you first need to have to know consciousness, frankly. And these guys did. It's a real shame that these great Greek Illuminates And, like Pythagoras and Parmenides and these people, like, clearly when you read them, they're illuminated. They're not read that way. They're not understood that way. But of course, this endeavor of ours, the one that we're engaged in right now, has been going on since the beginning of mankind, so far as we can tell. It's part of us.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we assume we know, I mean, like infinity. And this is where the flower ornament will help you. Sincerely. I mean, they deal with it directly. And although you have no idea, you have no way of knowing how it works, just like you can't know how the progression of teaching biochemistry works in advance, right? It nonetheless works. So don't despair, just keep working, keep at it.
And finally, other thing was...
We haven't actually resolved Zeno's paradox yet. What was Zeno's? 500 years before Christ? Zeno? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Has it been resolved to everybody's satisfaction?
I forgot what Zeno's paradox was.
All right, well, read it to the audience. Read it to the audience.
Zeno's paradoxes are a set of ancient mathematical and physical paradoxes that challenge common sense by using seemingly analytical arguments. I think, the arrow paradox, like the paradox of stasis, which states that an arrow in flight has an instantaneous position at a given instant of time, making it indistinguishable from a motionless arrow.
So in order to describe it accurately, you would have to have units of zero time. For it to reach the target. But the problem is, if you add up all those units of zero time, 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is still 0. Right? So it's just not something that we're going to be able to grok with our current mentalities, right? It can be grokked, but it's in the syntax.
That's like defining what present is. Like, it's infinitely small and it can be approximated to 0, and that's the problem that Zeno's paradox essentially says, that it's infinitely small but not 0.
So, excuse me. So we can define the word present, but what it points to we'll never know without grokking the present. You see?
Yes.
Some things have to be grokked. Consciousness, the present, time. Existence.
Yes.
Okay, sir. I'm afraid we may be getting too academic for people.
Yeah. And other thing that I was looking at was beliefs. More specifically,
you want to do a little Avatamsaka for a bit? Let's do a little in the middle. Let's do a little Avatamsaka.
Yeah.
What page are you on?
Yeah, that's fine. I am on page 274.
270 or 234?
Names. 274.
Okay. Oh, Varakana, book 6. Good.
I think it's Names of the Buddha.
Oh, Names of the Buddha. Which book is that?
I think it's book 7. Book 7.
Excellent. Why don't you read the last 2 paragraphs? Oh, and then we get to the Four Holy. The next book, book 8, is the Four Holy Truths. Woohoo!
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Yeah, that's good.
I
So
think I stopped
these first
around then.
seven chapters or books are just kind of grinding the meat of your mind a bit, grinding it up, tilling the field, loosening up the clods. It's just starting to prepare you, right, for what comes next. But go ahead, let's go. Above this world
Yeah.
endurance.
So I think I may start with endurance because that's our world. So
Oh yeah, that is our world is called endurance.
so in this world, endurance, there are 100 billion regions wherein the Buddha has million billion various names, letting all sentient beings know and see in various ways. East of this world, endurance is another world called secret teaching. There, the Buddha may be called impartial, or excellent, or soother, or enlightening mind, or speaker of truth, or attainer of freedom, or supreme body, or great courage, or fearless knowledge.
Peerless
There
knowledge.
are
Okay.
a million, yeah, there are a million such diverse names, letting beings know and see in various ways. South of this world, endurance is another world called abundance. There, the Buddha may be called original nature, or diligent intellect, or unexcelled honored one, or great torch of knowledge, or non reliant, or treasury of light, or treasury of wisdom, or treasury of virtue, or god of gods, or great independent one. There are a million billion such names, letting beings know and see in various ways. West of this world, endurance is a world called undefiled. There, the Buddha may be called wish fulfilled, or knower of the way, or resting in the fundamental, or able to untie bonds, or comprehending truth, or easily discerning, or supreme insight, or pacifying action, or ascetic practicer, or replete with power. There are billion such various names, letting beings know and see in various ways. North of this world, endurance is a world called inclusion. There, the Buddha may be called forever free from suffering, or universal liberation, or great hidden treasury, or knowledge of liberation, or storehouse of the past, or jewel light, or detached from the world, or state of non obstruction, or treasury of pure faith, or imperturbable mind.
Imperturbable mind.
There are imperturbable mind. There are a million billion such names, letting sentient beings know and see in various ways. Southeast of this world, sorry.
Okay, so that's good. But here, and then he goes to the southeast and to the southwest and to the northeast, and then they go below, and then they go to above. The nadir and the thing. So now, but notice what he says here: letting sentient beings know and see in various ways. Okay, so this is really critical. This is not learning in a linear manner. This is much more akin to the Sufi teaching method, which means you have to learn. You learn a lot of disparate things, and then one day they click. Actually, not just one day, but over time, different parts of it click into place, and then it forms a comprehensive understanding. All right, especially for someone like you. Okay, sir. Good. Any questions about any of that?
Not.
See
No.
how it's getting you accustomed to the scales, and it says specifically to help people learn and see in various ways, not one way, in various ways simultaneously. Okay, good, sir.
Regarding that, that is something that I also observed, at least for past few weeks. I sometimes have really strong negative feelings. Earlier, I used to avoid it, but now I just stay with it and actually look, why am I feeling that? Sometimes, most often, it could be just what it is, but sometimes there are certain beliefs. Like sometimes there are reactions to things that is happening in the real world, and I just observe what's the belief that's causing these things.
What's the belief
And
that's causing these things?
there are tons of them, and some of them are just
How do you know they're yours
contradicting
and
each
not the
other.
world's?
I don't know, but I do know these are
Okay,
like
you need to
conditioned
sort this
things.
out.
Like,
Because there's a collective consciousness that's impinging on you. And until you learn to defend yourself from it, you're somewhat at its mercy. I mean, you can defend yourself by many ways, including turning off the outside world or staying away from it or just sticking around good people. But if you're in a major city or a Western country, at the very least, you're going to be impinged upon by thoughts and feelings that aren't yours. They're the collective karma of humankind, the collective unconscious of humankind, and the current, what is it called? Yeah, collective consciousness, the noosphere. So, yeah, first you need to separate what's you and what's not you. And until, as long as you still have a solid self, or you think you have a solid self, these things can snag you. But once your self is no longer solid, it's liquid, it's fluid, it's like water, then these things just pass by. None of them can hook you. So don't let them hook you. That's all. What did Jesus say? Get behind me, Satan. Right?
yeah, at least that's what I'm trying to do. Earlier, I used to relate it to so much that I would avoid things. Like, I would do anything I can to avoid it.
Avoid what?
But these days, avoid the bad feelings that I get
Bad feelings or
when I
bad
react
thoughts?
to something. Bad thoughts, I would
Okay,
say.
bad thoughts. Murderous
Specifically
thoughts?
when
Murderous thoughts?
no.
What if you had
murderous.
murderous thoughts?
It's more.
What if you woke up one day and you
there are
wanted to kill a
beliefs.
Nazi? You saw a Nazi and you wanted to kill him.
I don't know. That's just a thought experiment.
It's just
I don't know
it's
what
just
I
a
will
thought.
do.
The point is, these are thoughts. They come and go. Don't let them snag you. Don't. This is part of why the Buddhists and the Taoists are very firm about this. You must learn to let these things just pass. Don't become attached. So if you become attached to a thought, which you do the minute you don't let it just come and go, then you're attached, and that's the cause of suffering. So don't be attached to thoughts that you don't want to be attached to. Guard your mind, right? Remember, guard your mind against the ambient culture, historical and current. And differentiate between what's your thought and what's the thought of the ambient culture. You may have nothing against Pakistanis personally, and yet you may feel yourself, thinking, well, these Pakistanis, or whatever, and vice versa, right? I'm not singling anybody out. So the point is that these aren't necessarily your thoughts. But in any case, whether they're yours or not yours, let them pass. Do not, what do they call the cause of suffering is attachment, especially attachment to concepts and thoughts. Okay, sir?
Yeah. And it's.
Anything else before we stop? We're going to have to get moving along here. What else is on the agenda? Practice questions of any sort?
I had one question from the teachings of Zen.
Okay, good. The teachings of Zen.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't think I have that one here. They start to... Go ahead.
But it was mostly about...
Oh, here, I found it.
I think.
nice little compendium. Okay, go ahead. Teachings of Zen, translated Thomas Clary. Very nice little book of aphorisms. A bit advanced, frankly, but go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, because in the initial few chapters itself, there is a talk, like a lot of things about mind and what is mind here in this context.
Okay, where?
For example, in the first page, the mind monarch.
Okay.
So observe the...
A couple of things. Number one, this is a beautiful book. Number two, it's a compendium of Zen teachings. Number three, with Clary, reading the notes and the intros is often as valuable as reading the books, and so that's very important. But here you're asking about the mind monarch.
Yeah.
Well, what is it? Read the first paragraph. Read the first paragraph. This is the mind monarch. Okay.
Mind.
Okay, here we go. We're starting on page 1, the mind monarch. Read the first paragraph.
Yeah. Observe the empty monarch of mind, mysterious, subtle, unfathomable. It has no shape or form, yet it has great spiritual, able to extinguish 1,000 troubles and perfect 10,000 virtues. Although its essence is empty, it can provide guidance. When you look at it, it has no form. Call it and it has a voice. It acts as a great spiritual leader. Mental discipline transmits scripture.
So it can perfect 10,000 virtues. Okay.
But at the same time, there are things like it has a voice. From that, I thought is it like that daemon that we were talking about few months ago, the daemon or the angels that guide you?
Well, the mind can include daemons, angels, bodhisattvas, tutelaries, saints and ancestors and anything you want. The mind is vast when you realize its potential, right? And these angels are hidden aspects of mind, okay? So what you're trying to do is draw a hard line. So why don't you read the next paragraph and a couple of lines?
Okay. Like salt in water, like adhesive in coloring, it is certainly there, but you don't see its form. So is the monarch of mind, dwelling inside the body, going in and out the senses. It responds freely to beings according to conditions, without hindrance, succeeding at all it does. When you realize the fundamental, you perceive the mind. When you perceive the mind, you see Buddha.
Okay, so stop.
The mind is
Stop.
Buddha.
Yeah, so stop. When you realize the fundamental, you perceive the mind. When you perceive the mind, you see Buddha. This mind is Buddha, the Buddha is mind. Okay? Now, Buddha is a good example of a word, okay? Buddha. Buddha refers to one historical personage, Shakyamuni Buddha. He refers to the lineage of Buddhas. He refers to the cosmic Buddha, and it refers to the Buddha as cosmos. And more, frankly. But okay, so this was written in the 5th century, all right? This is before Zen really got codified in any kind of way. So all I can say is if you read the passage, I think it's pretty clear. At least it's very clear if you've realized the fundamental. But if you haven't read the fundamental, then you get confused on the word mind. But in this, you asked what mind meant here. Mind means Buddha. Mind means the cosmos. Mind means everything that there is. Did I say fundamental already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and it's the principle. And so, again, you have to familiarize yourself. It's like mathematics. You never understand it, you just get used to it. Who said that? Was that Feynman?
I don't know, but I can.
I think it was Feynman. It sounds like Feynman. So again, there's no excuse. I mean, there's no replacement for bathing in these materials. You have to let them saturate, let them soak in. It takes time, right? Give it the time. But the thing is, all subjects are your subject matter. Now, you should focus on certain things because you're just starting out. But later, you're going to want to study everything. I mean, the whole cosmos is Buddha, is God, is reality, is truth. And here, in the 5th century, they're calling it mind. The Buddha is mind, the mind is Buddha. You are Buddha. You don't realize it yet, but you are Buddha. And so don't sell yourself short and don't get hung up on a bunch of puny little thoughts or worries. Do you see what I'm saying? Just take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your family, and proceed. It's a wonderful, wonderful adventure and a wonderful life. The best. Now I'm advertising. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. You'll forgive an old man his enthusiasm. Okay, go ahead. Next question.
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, sir. Well, guard your mind, explore your mind, learn what mind really means, and understand when they say mind is Buddha, Buddha is mind is the cosmos, Buddha is the cosmos. I mean, these things, they're now, admittedly, the 5th century, they weren't the most, they hadn't refined their teaching, in Zen, right? We're talking about China in the 5th century, I think. Yeah, definitely, because it's, we're talking Zen. So, we're out in the hinterlands, right? Okay, sir. Vaya con Dios, guard your mind, keep up the good work. Ciao.